I'm Daniel Kraft of NewsGator, and I'm here with Annalie today from AMP, but most important, you are known as the catalyst of magic. So why don't you give me a little background how you arrived at this very interesting name?
My job description had the title of Director of Innovation, Communication, Intranet and Knowledge Management, and that doesn't fit on a business card. And I kind of thought, well, what do these things all have in common? It's about the magic that you get when you employ human beings as opposed to machines. And that's the part that really interests me about work and the future of work, is what is different about human beings that can't be automated.
That is wonderful. I hear you're also running an event called Amplify, where you giving the employees the opportunity to see the future. I heard a lot about it, and we were actually part of it, so maybe share a bit about that and how this evolved over time.
The Amplify Festival had small beginnings. It started with an idea, and then the idea became a prototype or an experiment, and then this experiment was a success, and then it's kind of grown from there and become very much part of the culture map of our innovation program now. The purpose of the event was really to look at how disruptive trends and emerging technologies shape human behavior. The event is very much designed to be an immersive learning experience and to democratize learning, because the traditional method of organizational development and leadership development is very much about a few crown princes and princesses being whisked off to Harvard Business School or some executive development program. But Amplify brings the equivalent of that back into the organization, and it opens it up to give everybody an equal and unfettered opportunity to get the same exposure.
You mentioned that you want to bring innovation into the organization. How do you make it stick so it becomes a culture of innovation in your organization every day?
Well, my specific role and priorities is about driving the innovation culture, but I'm not the only person working on innovation in the environment. Today we have an ecosystem approach to innovation, because I found that there is no one single thing that makes innovation happen. It's a combination of many, many different things. So one is, what is the cultural environment? One is, what is the processes? What is the behaviors and reward and recognition system? What are the tools and technology that you provide people? So I focus a lot on the cultural environment. One of the biggest inhibitors I believe we have is a very hierarchical structure in what you find in most large corporations. And I think that that inhibits initiative, entrepreneurial spirit, and it often, means that there is not enough of a permission to experiment culture. And I think that, for organizations that want to be successful in the future, they have to move much more to an adult-to-adult kind of a culture where people in the organization are self-empowered to do what they need to do to realize the vision of the organization. I'll give you an example of that. We ran a film festival in 2009, the first corporate film festival, and asked employees to produce a movie. Now, what's unusual about that was that there was freedom to create, freedom to write the script that you wanted, no editing involved. It was a fun exercise, so people really got into it. They were actually becoming much more familiar with the tools that the web are giving us to participate in a social and a collaborative work environment, which is the kind of technologies we want people to embrace for their day-to-day jobs.
So you mentioned that you embraced the idea of social in the workplace very early. Now, looking back, would you say that social business and social technologies makes you a better company?
Yes. I think there's problems with the word social. So I think semantics matter. And in business, the word social has not previously had a strong anchor point. The other thing I think that is problematic about the word social is I think it alienates introverts because they equate social with extroversion. So I've chosen to use collaborative work environment, collaborative tools instead, because there is emotional baggage in some large corporations around the term social. But if you talk about collaborative and productivity tools, there is no argument. And so for me, it's simply a matter of semantics. Do you believe that collaboration leads to better outcomes for a business? How could you not believe that?
One question many ask is, should we have our collaborative initiative, our social initiative, being based on use cases, business value, or should we say this is the new way of doing things and just do it? So there's a big debate right now, and you have been an early adopter.
Yes.
Share a little bit about how you approached that and what way has been more successful to get engagement.
I think the example that you gave is a great one, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of corporations fail to innovate, because they say, show me the ROI first. And unless I can see the ROI, I'm not going to go down this route. When the evidence of adoption and the transformation of consumer behavior is all around you, the point is that not everything that may create disruption to your business model can be quantified and neatly packaged up front. But can you deny that it's happening? Of course you can't. So I just started it out by way of saying the evidence is all around us that this trend is not going away. What is the harm in running some experiments? Mm-hmm. If it fails, no harm. If it's a success, you build on that. And so many of the changes that we've introduced in the organization have not been through one great big massive rollout, sheep dip scenario. It has been much more around, well, let's try something, let's learn how to do it well, and then when we learn it well, we create case studies inside the organization, and the adoption happens that way. Of course, it's faster if the entire leadership gets behind it, as it has become now at AMP with our innovation and transformation journey.
Very nice. When you're looking at human productivity, and let's take a little journey through history, we have seen a gigantic spike in productivity during the Industrial Revolution by overcoming our physical limitations. We had machines helping us what we could not do with our hands. Years later, with the digital revolution, we actually overcame the limitations of our brain by being able to store way more information in digital means than we could do in our brain, and we can now focus on the action and not on the remembering the information. Social is allowing us to also tap into the emotional level of human beings. Do you see evidence that there is a productivity gain through that?
I think what collaborative technologies have enabled that is different to the Industrial Revolution and the knowledge revolution is I think we're now in a creative revolution. Mm-hmm. So I think it's beyond just emotional. I think it's really about tapping the unique abilities of humans that can't be automated. So at the moment, it's still very difficult, and may in many years from now be possible to automate empathy, to automate storytelling, but I can't see that in my lifetime. So I think that the productivity comes from the ability to now tap into a global workforce of talent. I believe that 70% of the parts in a Boeing 747 can be printed by a 3D printer. Now, that could become decentralized production and manufacturing. It doesn't have to all happen in Seattle.
I really like the term creative revolution. Often people approach me and saying, we're too conservative for doing this. What I learned from you today is that being a conservative organization or being a progressive organization is not really the defining factor. It's more like, am I open, Or am I a very hierarchical organization that it does everything by like top to bottom? So maybe you can share a bit about your experience and what the model is that you think is most successful.
I think that's a great observation. I hadn't personally thought of it in that way, but I don't think that clinging to a conservative organization serves you in the future. I think it's much better to think about open and closed systems. An open system is able to adapt. A closed system actually dies over time. So it doesn't serve you to be closed. And being open to me is much more about being connected into the marketplace and observing, emergent trends and then assimilating and absorbing them without upsetting the equilibrium in the ecosystem. I don't think that the single leader can know everything. You really need to empower your employees to be co-learners with you, otherwise you won't be able to keep up.
So you're really unlocking the power of connected people.
Yes, absolutely. And everyone in your organization is plugged into a network of knowledge. So the more you can, in fact, leverage that network, the greater the pool of intelligence that you can draw on.
How do you stay on top of a subject? You want to go deep and learn more about it, but on the other hand, you want to stay cutting edge and see what's going on left and right. And how are you translating that back into the real world every day? And you're not becoming a philosopher that is talking about something that is wonderful, but maybe needs 100 years for the rest of us to understand.
I don't try and be an expert on any one area, other than, I suppose, culture of innovation. That's the thing that I go deep on. What I go shallow on, my T-shape, is knowing a little bit about a lot of things. But I filter it through the lens of how do I take what I learn about a lot of these emerging trends and then internalize it so that I can have a conversation with my organization and my leadership to say, and so what? What would this mean, or what could this mean? Because I see that as my role, is to be a bridge between the future and the present and help people interpret how changes in the, that are still down the pipeline may in fact create both opportunities as well as threats that you want to prepare for.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for letting us participate in the magic that you experience every day. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Daniel, and it was a pleasure to participate. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.